Configuring high availability HA and DRS, which is distributed resources scheduling in vSphere 6. If you remember, in first video, or not first video, in one of the initial video when we created a cluster, I did not enable HA and DRS. Now it's time to enable HA and DRS. What is HA and DRS? Well, high availability, it's a good feature that will take care of your high availability. What I mean to say that, okay, vMotion is good. We can migrate VMs whenever we like from one host to another host, or DRS, as I explained in previous video, can do this for us automatically, moving VMs from one host to another host whenever there is resource contention and there is a room of performance improvement. But what if there is a sudden hardware failure? Let's say server 2, which is right now running on ESXi 2. What if ESXi 2 fails? Let's say motherboard failed and all of a sudden server boom goes off. Well, in this case, definitely server 2 will goes off because server 2 was running on ESXi 2. If high availability is enabled and if server 2 goes off because it was running on ESXi 2 and ESXi 2 is down, other available hosts in cluster, for example, let's say ESXi 1, will attempt or basically restart server 2 on itself. Like server 2 was running on ESXi 3, ESXi 3 failed, so of course server 2 VM will goes off or will be power off unexpectedly. But another ESXi host, when it will detect that it happened because server 2 VM was HA enabled, which means was enabled for high availability protection, server 1 or server 2, like ESXi 1 or ESXi 2, the remaining host, will restart server 2. So in our case, for example, ESXi 2 or sorry, ESXi 1, let's say, will restart server 2, and server 2 will start running on ESXi 1. It will restart. It's like a restart. It's like a sudden failure and then you start that. Okay, what about sessions at that time which were the users which were connected to server 2 when it goes off? Well, of course, that information will be lost, but it is a good way to protect your VM. At least, doesn't matter how big your VM is. Your VM can have 10, 20 CPUs, hundreds of gigs of RAM, multiple NICs, and if this machine goes off, you can the VMware vSphere will automatically restart VM on another remaining host. So the machine will be restarted. Yes, you will lose session, but in virtual environment, don't forget the restart time is very short and machine restarts very quick. So once the machine will be restarted on another host, the users can reconnect and keep working. And with this advanced operating systems nowadays and with advanced applications, they have built-in resiliency. Like if there's a sudden shutdown in 2012, it can perform soft recovery. Exchange can perform soft recovery. SQL can handle usually this type of events as well. So chances of corruptions are very, very low because the file system and the type of technology used nowadays. So HA is a good solution. Of course, we have something called reliability or fault tolerance, but it won't protect a huge large number of VMs. Let's say a VM which has maximum, it will protect a VM which has 4 CPUs, but you cannot have protect a VM which has 8 CPUs, right? So HA is a good thing, and you need to enable it in order to have a high availability and peace of mind that in case if something happened to my ESXi host, my VMs, my critical VMs will be restarted, or all VMs, maybe any VM which is enabled for HA will be restarted. So only that restart time will be the downtime, and after that everything will be all up and running again. And both features, DRS and HA, we enable at cluster level. So I'll go to cluster 1. Okay, manage, and these are the settings. So if I go to DRS, right, DRS is turned off. HA is turned off. So let's configure it. Let's start with DRS first. Let's turn on DRS. DRS automation, I would like to keep it fully automated. No power management. I'm not using any power management. And I can choose the migration level to more aggressive. If I choose to manual, then what will happen? As vCenter will suggest the migration recommendation. For example, vCenter will say, okay, if you move server 2 to ESXi 3, you will get better performance. Recommendation. It won't do it, but it will recommend. Partially automated means in case if I'm starting server 2, so it will automatically place on host and power on a host where the center will believe that they will get better performance, and for existing VMs which are already running, it will recommend or provide suggestion. Fully automated means, as the name suggests, fully automated. It will be automatically placed on host and power on, as well as will be automatically migrated, means automatically vMotion from one host to another to optimize resource usage. Like if vSphere believes that server 2 which is running on ESXi 2 will get better performance if it vMotion it to ESXi 1, it will automatically do that for you. If I turn it to aggressive, then that will be more frequent. There are 3 priorities: priority 1, 2, 3, actually 4 priorities. From conservative to aggressive. Aggressive means we'll apply a recommendation and promise even a slight improvement to the cluster load balance. Even if it believes that there is a slight improvement can be achieved, it will automatically vMotion your virtual machines. And if you want to set individual virtual machine levels, maybe I have 5 VMs. I want to enable fully automated and aggressive for all except one. One of the VM I want to handle by myself, or as an admin, I would like to vMotion it. I would like VMware or vSphere or vCenter to just recommend me, but don't automatically vMotion that critical VM, because I don't want to miss even a single thing, which usually you won't miss it, but I just don't want it to move for whatever reasons. Then in this case, I can always override virtual machine automation DRS settings at virtual machine level. Okay, power management or DPM. We are not talking about that, which is like automatically shutting down hosts when they are not needed and starting them up when more computing power is required. Sometimes your DRS needs some tweaking, so you can add some advanced configuration parameter over here. So DRS is turned on. I make it fully automated and aggressive. And I'll say OK. Now it's configuring the cluster, and that's it. DRS is configured. What about HA, or high availability? Let's edit it. And now let's turn on vSphere HA, or high availability. Host monitoring. ESXi host, in my case ESXi 1, 2, and 3, in cluster exchange network heartbeats, so it knows that okay, they are alive. Disabling this feature while performing network maintenance, of course, might cause isolation response. Of course, if you're performing network maintenance, better to turn off this because it can cause false positive. Host better to turn off host monitoring. Host hardware monitoring, which is VM component. Of course, ESXi has the ability to detect different failures. And it has the ability to detect storage failure as well, because prior to version 5, in version 4, if somehow the management network is disconnected, the ESXi used to think that the host is down, and it will try to, depends on the setting, it will try to turn on the VM, take control of that VM and turn it on another host. But from version 5 onwards, there are two checks: management network as well as the storage. So as soon as even if the management network is disconnected by shared storage, ESXi or vCenter and your master host realizes that okay, that that the that ESXi2, for example, although its management network is disconnected, but still ESXi2 can access the storage. So it means ESXi2 is alive. So I would like ESXi host to detect various failures and protect against storage connectivity loss as well. VMware or virtual machine monitoring. Well, virtual machine monitoring can also be used. So if the virtual machine have VMware tools installed, it will sending heartbeats to your vCenter, or it's to your host. And if, let's say, virtual machine hangs or become unresponsive, or tools have some problem, then it will think that the VM is not running, or VM will stop functioning. So what it will do, it will automatically restart that individual VMs, and that's what it says. Virtual monitoring, VM monitoring restarts individual VMs if their VMware tool heartbeats are not received within a set time. There is an application monitoring also. There are certain APIs that you can integrate for some particular application. So you can even detect the functionality of those applications. By default, it's disabled. You can enable VM monitoring only or VM and application monitoring. It all depends. Failure condition. In case if the host is failure, what to do? Response right default is restart VMs. Sorry. Host isolation, right now it's disabled, will remain power on. So sometimes the host get just isolated, like management network has been disconnected. Data stored with permanent device loss, right now it's disabled. And data stored with all path down, the response is disabled. Data store at this moment, but we can always change this response. For example, response for permanent device loss, we can say issue or power off and restart, or just issue an event or just power off and restart VM. All paths down, we can say power off and restart VM, conservative or aggressive. So these settings, which are very critical, you need to tweak, especially if you are using VMware Voluntary. Admission control is another very important thing, which is used by HA, because by default it reserves some capacity, so that in case if there is a failure of a host, it has the ability to accommodate all those VMs that it needs to restart. So what it do, it reserves some capacity. What will be the size of the capacity? By default, reserved capacity is one host. You can have, depends on the slot size, cover all power VMs, or you can have a fixed slot size, or you can define failover capacity by percentage. Just reserve 25% of CPU and 25% of memory of what? Of cluster, not host. Or you can specify a dedicated host, or host that this host, don't use it. Use it only when you need it for failover. This host will just for also reserve capacity. Well, that's really a wastage of resources. So usually this is the default setting. By default it can reserve just one host, but you can always say just reserve capacity, like 25% of CPU and 25% of memory. So it means we have like a 75%, and if one host down, so whatever the remaining minus 25%, because that 25% will be used, it will be reserved to power on those VM which went down with the host. What if you try to turn on VM and the host reaches the cluster reaches its capacity, and it has reserved capacity and computing capacity. So what if you have reached that computing power and now you have more VMs to start? It won't start because it will say that now I need to reserve capacity. For example, let's say you have 30 gigs of RAM and 25%, of course let's say 60 gigs of RAM and 25% of RAM. When we are talking about, it means 25% of 60 gigs is what, 45 gigs of RAM, right? So let's say I have VMs and provisioning VMs and all and that, and I have reached, and don't forget my host also need VM memory, and my VMs also need memory, and I reach like 45 gigs. Now I try to create a new VM, or let's say I have one VM is already shut down with 4 gigs of RAM. If I try to turn it on, it will not let me. It will say no, because I have already reached my capacity, which is 45 gigs, and I will not let you turn on more anymore because I don't have capacity. Because although I have 60 gigs and I'm using, and the 45 gigs utilized, but the other 10 gig is reserved for failover. What if some of the host fails? In this case, I have to accommodate all those VMs, so that's why I'm reserving it. So I will not let you turn on or provision or start any more VMs. But if you want to override this, you can say don't reserve failover capacity. In this case, allow virtual machine power on that violate availability constraints. So even though it's there, just allow them to power on. I would like to keep this one to default, which is define failover capacity, and keep it to 25% of CPU and 10% of memory. Okay. And VMware monitoring, I'm keeping it disabled. In case response of permanent device loss, I can say power off and restart VM. Host isolation, no, I don't want my VMs to be restarted. All paths down, if let's say the ESXi is all paths down, which is the temporary situation, right? Just keep it disabled. All path down is some sort of a temporary situation. Permanent device loss, it's a type of situation when then device is really not accessible at all. You can read more about these two from VMware knowledge base, and there are many articles about that. So I think this is okay. And data store for hardware, it needs at least 2 para stores. So I can choose, automatically select data store accessible from host, or I can say use data store from the specified list. And I have just 2. I can choose both of them. So what it does, all hosts which are participating in HA, they will create a small file of these 2 data store, and they will keep modifying or writing that file, so or changing the file. So that's how they know that okay, they are alive and functional. So even if the management network is disconnected, they know that host 2 management network, although disconnected, but host 2 is still accessing data store because it's still modifying those files. So I will show those files to you. You browse after enabling. I can choose automatic. In my case, doesn't matter. I have only 2 shared ones, and I can keep it automatic here. Doesn't make any difference. And I once again, this setting is for advanced options for HA. How does it know? Let me give you one example of advanced parameter. By default, it ping also to its default gateway. So know that, for example, vCenter, or let's say host 1, which is master, for example, it's trying to communicate with host 2 and host 3. Host 2 management network is disconnected, right? So how host 2 knows that is there's a problem in the network, or it's problem with just I cannot reach my master? It tried to ping by default. They also try to ping gateway. So this is the default behavior. But what if I don't want them to ping gateway? Maybe the gateway is a firewall which ICMP is blocked. Or let's say I want to specify another IP address that they can try to ping instead of gateway. So I can specify those values here. Anyway, just let's say okay. I noticed that I'm just explaining too much, because basically, guys, you need to understand this is not a training. It's more like hands-on sort of a video with give you a small overview or short overview of the technology. But I'm noticing that my videos are getting very longer because I'm just keep at least trying to. Sometimes I get just engaged to, try to explain stuff. Not necessarily it is well explained, but I'm trying. Sometimes I'm just trying to explain, which is not a good thing because video size becomes bigger. And because all these videos which I create for you guys, it's basically for the how-to series, I would say, like how to configure these things, and in addition to that, a small overview, like a definition. Okay, this is this, this is that. Not detailed explanation. My videos are not basically designed, or you can say as training videos. They are basically, I would say, how-to videos, like how to configure this, how to configure that, if you want to run or configure something in a short period of time. Uh, this is what usually I want. This is what I want to make, but I think uh, I will be careful, a little careful next time. Okay, because sometimes the internet here is horrible, and it may take ages to upload all these videos. Anyway, so now we enable this HA, and we enable what? Yeah, it's turned off. Sorry, did I click OK? Come on, man. Yep, value 5 and enable. Okay, what's happening here? Oh shit, come on. Okay, it is configured. I don't know why this is not. Just it is definitely on. So if I go to server one and advanced configuration, here it is. Yeah, here, sorry. vSphere HA protection is protected. This is protected by high availability. So vSphere will attempt to restart VM after supported failure. Same thing for server 2, it's protected. And cluster HA is on, host monitoring is on, DRS is on. See, it sometimes is just, I think it's just a matter of time, because of the resources, sometimes it just takes a while. Okay, So DRS is on, HA is on. So that's how you basically configure them. It's very easy. Just click. The most important thing I would like you to do, just spend some time on these options. You know, these options are very important, like admission control. If you want to take certification, you need to know what administration control is, how does it works, and this host isolation response, what is permanent device loss, and all path down. It's very important thing, especially if you're working with vSphere in production environment. DRS, general concept. So just work on it. Just try to read more details about it. And rest, most of the time, default settings are enough, but each environment has its own stuff, own number of resources, so that needs to be scheduled or configured accordingly and according to the policies. So that's how we configure. And yeah, if we go to server 1, for example, right, it's running on ESXi1, correct? And I go to manage, and these are certain options of the VMware for the particular VM. The storage DRS options, which is what is storage DRS, we did not cover it. I will cover it for you. Okay, some advanced options which I will also cover what I was trying to show you. I just forgot. Sorry. It's trying to show something. What was that? Anyway, let me go back. What I was trying to mention here. Server 2. Server 2 is running on ESXi2, right? So how about if we simulate a failure? Let's say if I just power off ESXi2 and let's see what happens to server 2. Okay, so if we have to do that to make sure that this is server 2, it's running. We just give it a manual IP. Though it should take this same IP. Okay, 162 is it? 152. Come on. Come on. 9168.0.1 and 0200. Okay. Ping should still there. It's the same IP, just assign it manual. The IP don't change, though it shouldn't. But because the DHCP will be there and it's the same machine, it will just restart on another host. It shouldn't be a problem, but just to avoid any hassle. Okay. Okay. So let me try to power off ESXi2. Keep this in mind, it's running on ESXi2. Yeah, this ping. So I'll choose ESXi2 and say power. Boom. Okay. So let's refresh this. You see, VM is down. VM is down. There it's showing power on, but just don't worry about it because it's just a slowness in lab environment. You can see it here, VM is down. Now let's see when HA kicks in and start this VM. Still down. What about console? Did it reflect? Yeah, okay. You see? It is reflecting here. ESXi2.IDSense is not responding and server 2 is disconnected. It recognized that ESXi2 is not available, cannot reach ESXi2, and server 2 is showing disconnected. And look at that. Look at this ping. Came back. HA kicked in and the server has started. The virtual machine has restarted. So we simulated a failure, and as you can see, and boom! Aha. Launch remote console. And here it is. So HA kicked in. HA worked. So this is what I wanted to show you, that HA, in case of a sudden host failure, what HA does, it restarts VM on another host. So you have small window of downtime, but again you will be back up and running in a very short period of time. DRS, it's very hard to show here because DRS you will see when there is contention of resource. And trust me, once you tested the vMotion, which I have tested in my environment, and you just enable DRS, it will work for sure. So this is it, guys. It was a good test. I will now turn on ESXi2, and that's it. I will see you in another video. Thank you.